Hello, and welcome back to season 4 of Visiting Dugout. I am Chrystal O'Keefe, podcaster, managing editor, writer, a lot of other things at Southside Sox. And today I have my friend Aaron back to chat about the A's. He is my favorite A's correspondent. Welcome back. Please reintroduce yourself to those that may be unfamiliar.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Cameron. For 45 of my 53 years on this earth, I have been rooting for the green and the gold, first in Oakland, now during their 3-year residency in Sacramento, and then wherever they may land after that. And I also have my own podcast debuting later this month called The Fancester. It's an intersection of interesting people and stories of their fandom. And the incomparable Chrystal O'Keefe was kind enough to hop on that with me, and you'll be hearing her on my own show a little bit later this month.
It's true. It was a very fun, exciting day for me to be on someone else's podcast for a change instead of forcing people to talk to me all the time. So what's new with the athletics and how are people adjusting to the temporary ballpark, especially?
Oh, Crystal, I think the 5 stages of grief cliche is very cliche, but I think it's a little apropos here. I think there's this weird acceptance, not to say that the anger or the sadness is dissipated, it hasn't. But I do think that there is just this sense that um, the stadium is getting built. It's moving along very quickly. Las Vegas does one thing tremendously well, and that is build things. So that stadium's going up, scheduled to open in 2028. Um, the A's continue this very weird squatting in Sacramento. I will say that compared to last year, they are making at least a modicum of effort to celebrate the city of Sacramento, West Sacramento. They've incorporated or instituted Sacramento Saturdays where they're doing giveaways and they're honoring local heroes in the community every Saturday. I was up there for the first one. They gave away a fantastic giveaway jersey. Those things are usually cheap and not very well made. This had stitching all throughout. It had the Las Vegas sponsor patch, which, okay, tacky, yes, but it was stitched on. And it was a packed house, man, 12,000 people there to get one. So they've, I think, settled in. The team, the fan base, or what's left of it, has kind of settled into, okay, this is reality. It's going to be weird and a little clunky for another couple of years, but um, yeah, it's the new normal, and it's the most abnormal normal you could probably imagine, Crystal.
I did get to see the site when I was in Vegas about a year and a half ago. Even though I put in my Uber profile, please don't talk to me, this Uber driver really wanted to talk and just chat. And I was like, I'm just gonna let this happen. But I was wearing a baseball, like I was wearing a White Sox shirt. So I think he was just talking, he wanted to talk about sports. And I was like, I'm gonna just let this happen. And he was like, oh, we're gonna pass the site where the athletics will be. And I was like, oh, okay, how do you, and like we were kind of just talking back and forth, and I was like, how do you feel about them coming to your city? Because you have all these like kind of bastardized teams now in your city that you've stolen from people. So like, how is that? How are like Vegas people reacting? And we had this like lovely little conversation, and I was like, well, I mean, I might come back when I'm not as bitter um with the A's front office and ownership. Like maybe I'll come back to Vegas when I'm not so bitter and I'll catch a game. And he was like, "Yes, come back. I'll be your driver." And I was like, "Probably not, but that's okay." But yeah, I got to at least see it.
Yeah, Crystal, it's funny. I was in spring training this past March, and it's been a long time since I felt the kind of vibe amongst the A's fan base. There was a good number of A's fans at the road game that I went to in Surprise, where the Royals and the Rangers play. And I'm not at all suggesting that this is the heyday of the Bash Brothers or the Giambi era A's or anything like that. But there was certainly about 25 to 30% A's fans in which for this franchise at this point in time, and I'm talking kids with Jacob Wilson jerseys, Nick Kurtz jerseys, families together. It's honestly, it's something I have not seen in force, in mass, in at least a decade. So I feel like something is brewing there. Now, I didn't ask everybody, hey, where are you from? Where are you from? So they could have been holdovers from Oakland. They could have been Sacramento folks. They could have been Vegas folks. They could have been, old people throwbacks like myself. But there's something that's brewing there that I'm not with this ownership group. I'm not necessarily going to do um, correlation and causation here, but something's up. Something with the fan base is up, and if they can harness this and nurture this and grow this, they can turn 2028 into something special.
I will give Vegas credit. They really took the Golden Knights, their NHL team, they really took to the Golden Knights, and they're a very well-loved team out there. They did start new and they took a bunch of really incredible players and like won a bunch of games right off the bat, but they at least took to them. Like I see their stuff all over the
Yeah.
airports even. So I'm hoping that they'll actually take to the A's and give them some respect. Always dicey though. So it seems like the A's did a little bit in the off season. You're now without Corn's biggest fan, Mason Miller. Um, how do you feel about what happened leading up to this season?
Yeah, the A's more or less opted to run it back with most of the same roster from 2025. The biggest change was the acquisition of Jeff McNeil.
Mm.
Came over from the Mets. The A's gave up an 18-year-old lottery ticket to get McNeil. The A's definitely did not have very many curmudgeons on this team, so I feel like Jeff McNeil is going to at least kind of fill that quota. But he actually has been pretty solid. As we record this, the A's just are returning from a road trip in New York where McNeil played against his old team, the Mets, for the first time. Had a tremendous series, something like 10 for 15 or something. His average is now sitting in the 300s. Defensively, he's a little rough. He looks every bit his age, if not older. But the A's aren't a great defensive team aside from maybe center field and right field anyway. So McNeil's fit in that regard. He's been a good bat. They're hitting him like in the sixth and seventh spot. The other changes from last year, they brought in Scott Barlow from Cincinnati and Mark Leiter Jr. from the Yankees to kind of fluff out the bullpen. The results have been a little mixed in the early going, but they're out there getting innings. And Andy Ibanez came over from the Dodgers off the waiver wire. Um, Mashes lefties, plays the infield. He's maybe a little redundant on this team, but I think it was one of those things where the A's got a guy with those great platoon splits, and he's only making about $1 million, and they swooped on him when the Dodgers had to DFA him. So a lot of familiar faces from 2025, a few new folks, but yeah, I think when you see them starting on Friday against the White Sox, you're going to recognize most of the folks in that lineup.
Yeah, Jeff McNeil, that was a fun one. He's like my little flying squirrel boy. And I was watching a lot of that series because the Mets are my backup team, unfortunately. And the entire time on the broadcast, Keith Hernandez was kind of just poking fun at Jeff McNeil's temper. You mentioned I mean, he fits in with the old curmudgeons, and he's was very well known for just getting really annoyed at strike three calls and just chucking his helmet into the dugout and just being kind of a little punk bitch. But like in a loving way.
Yes.
Like I loved him as a punk bitch. Um but yeah, that was fun. I actually watched a bunch of like really corny videos of like players interacting, like old like Mets players interacting with him, and it was like, oh, my little babies. They just missed like they're just like BFFs again. And then he does great against the Mets, in this kind of like homecoming to Citi Field. And I was like, you know what? I'm happy for you. I'm not bitter about this one, actually. I'm not, but I was happy that he was thriving on another team, which is good for him. He's a good egg. He's just a
Yeah,
little
he he
annoying.
he fits in. He's the oldest player in the everyday lineup by far. I think Brent Rooker He's in his early 30s. Is his probably the second oldest guy, and I'll give McNeil credit. I was a little worried about how he would blend into this particular locker room. Very young, very juvenile, and I say that not in a pejorative sense. It's just a bunch of young jocks who are going to be young jocks, and it's always you worry about that little oil and water mix when you get a McNeil in there. But he's seems to have acclimated quite well. Honestly, he's the I joke about his curmudgeon ways, and honestly, aside from the fact that he never seems to smile, except for when he was playing these 3 games in City this past weekend, he's been a good fit, good blue guy. So if he continues to hit like he's been hitting, yeah, I can see him sticking around the season and providing some of that dreaded, cliched veteran presence that everybody talks about.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's a good fit for that team right now. So you did just mention the Mets series. They just swept my poor pathetic Mets. Are you confident about this 2026 season and what the A's are capable of?
Yeah, Crystal, I at the beginning of the season, I had this A's team pegged for 80 wins, 80 and 82, which would be, I believe, a 4 game improvement over 2025. Um, the offense was projected to be very, very good, and it really hasn't been in the early going. The pitching staff was supposed to be their Achilles heel, and their pitching staff the last week or so has been tremendous. So obviously it's early, and I understand that these trends are going to even out. There'll be some regression to the mean and all that stuff. But yeah, there's absolutely optimism, not necessarily crystal optimism that we'll be holding up a trophy on November 1st or whenever the World Series ends these days, but optimism in that you'll see growth amongst the young players, you'll see progress amongst the team, and they can kind of continue what they are very clearly trying to do, which is kind of build very slowly a contender for that first season in Las Vegas. And honestly, I think their window for contention probably opens next year. And if they can do that, with a couple more puzzle pieces, whether it's through free agency or trade acquisitions, I hate the whole trust the process thing, but that's kind of where I think A's fans are at now. Anything beyond 500 would be gravy. If they were to sneak into that last wild card berth, I'd be over the moon. But realistically, they're still kind of working their way through in a very, very tough AL West. So 80, 81, 82 wins would be, kind of the stretch goal there. But yeah, it's all part of the long range plan, I think, and so far so good.
Well, I mean, hey, they're currently tied for first in the AL West. The Astros have had a total collapse. The Astros are worse than the White Sox right now.
Oh,
We love
yeah.
to
See,
see.
these are headlines I wasn't ready for. So
Yeah,
I'll take anything that is anti-Astro. So yeah, feed
yeah.
me
I
that all
mean,
day.
you and the homophobic Rangers are tied for first right now. Congratulations. I can't be super mean because I love Andrew McCutchen more than
Yes,
a lot of things in this world. So like I can't be as mean to the Rangers as I want to right now, but um I might drive to Detroit just to see Andrew McCutchen because that's the only chance I might get to see him this year.
always worth the gas, always worth the mileage. And the A's, before the White Sox series starts with the Athletics, the A's play against the Rangers. So it'll be a real fun competitive series. I think the A's offense against what is supposed to be a pretty solid Rangers pitching staff. So after the brutal, and I might add, Crystal, wildly unfair scheduling to start the season, where the A's had to play 2 series on the East Coast, come back to Sacramento for a measly 3 games, and then back to the East Coast for 2 more series. I assure you, my sternly written email to Commissioner Manfred has already been penned and sent.
It's going to fall on deaf ears,
Probably,
unfortunately.
probably
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, the Rangers do. Jacob deGrom is kind of back in good Jacob deGrom form. My birthday triplet, Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, man, DeGrom's pitching. Kumar Rocker. I know
Mm,
he's given up a few runs. I think his area is sitting around 4.5 right now, but he's always dangerous out there. And the Rangers, man, they're just one of those teams that no matter what their record is, I feel like they can hang 12 on you at any time. So yeah, it should be a fun series.
yeah, well. Hopefully, Andrew McCutcheon is going to play on May 2nd, so I don't drive all the way out to Detroit for nothing. Because I've seen him, with the exception of 2020, or if he's been out the entire year with an injury, I have seen him every single year since 2007 in his
Nice.
minor league days. So I can't miss him.
No, your brand is strong, clearly.
I gotta see my man.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll take a quick break, then we'll get into what to expect from this series. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. So it's a little early for pitching matchups. The White Sox also just called up their top prospect, Noah Schultz, for pitching, so that kind of throws a wrench into what we might see. But what can we expect from A's pitching for this series?
Yeah, most likely the A's are in the middle of a 16-day stretch with no days off. So if you look at the probables for the Texas series, that translates into the White Sox getting Aaron Savali game one Friday night.
Old
Then,
friend.
yep, then Luis Severino and Jeffrey Springs for games two and for game three. Savali has been shockingly good. I did not realize this guy had it in him, and
Hmm.
it's been just gritty, gutty stuff. He's obviously doesn't have a fastball that's going to get triple digits or anything like that, but he's just working corners. He's keeping hitters off balance. He's been really, really um, just that kind of leadership that you don't expect from a guy who kind of came in late, was signed late, and is, for all intents and purposes, our number five starter. But I've watched post-game interviews with the guy, and he's just got this way about him that's just like, oh, okay, I can kind of see why we brought him in. And it's funny because he was terrible in spring training. Um, he'd had one of those things where they lit him up, so the Ace took him out and then brought him back in just so he could come in with a clean inning. And then the Padres just kept beating on him, and it was like, oh, white flag, uncle. And there was never any doubt that he was going to make the opening day rotation, but there was just a lot of folks going, why is he going to make the opening day rotation? So he's been rock solid. And the one caveat I will say is he hasn't pitched at home yet, and he does have that long ball problem. So Sacramento, high octane offensive environment. So we'll see how that goes. But and yeah, the rest of the rotation, the rest of the probable starters. Severino was our opening day guy again. Hopefully, he's gotten a little bit of the mental issues with Sacramento out of his head. He was very vocal about how much he hated pitching there last
Hmm.
year. Um, Quite frankly, it really was not conduct becoming of the leader of a staff who gets paid as much as he does. I'm never one of these shut up and dribble guys, but it's like, dude, everybody knows the situation. You
Yeah.
sign the contract. Come on, man. So he is what he is at this point. Severino's probably a three or a four, kind of masquerading as a one or a two. But he's looked good in fits and starts. He always seems to kind of have that patch where he it just kind of all melts down for him. But he's looked good this season, and I expect him to have a year similar to last year. And then Jeffrey Springs, who has also been very good. He threw, gosh, six or seven no-hit innings against the Yankees last week. Yeah, he's kind of like the forgotten guy in this rotation. You got Severino, the leader, the most expensive guy. You got the high potential guys like Luis Morales, who was just sent down, and a few others. But yeah, Springs has been a pretty solid lefty number two out of there, and just another guy who I think the A's really need to succeed if they hope to achieve my my predicted goal of 80 wins.
Yeah. I was so Aaron Savali didn't do phenomenal with the White Sox, but he was at least very consistent. And that was a big gripe I had when they lost him because he went to the Cubs too, which added like that layer of stink in between the White Sox and then coming to you guys. Um, but I was so disappointed when he left because at least I knew what to expect from
Yeah.
him. I knew what kind of game I was going to get. He was going to be perfectly fine and he was going to eat innings. That was my biggest concern was we just need somebody that's going to eat innings so that our bullpen arms aren't falling off. And he was
Yeah,
great for that. He's a workhorse.
it's interesting because the A's have a few guys that I really thought were better fits for the number five spot. Where the team is at this point in their trajectory, I'd have gone with some kids, man. You sink or swim. The A's have a kid named Jack Perkins who was up last year. They just brought him back, but he's more of a long man now, 2 3 inning guy out of the pen now. And I really thought he would get the number five spot. There's a few others that were in the mix, but they went to Savali, and I was just like, man, it's he felt like one of those moves you make to round out the rotation if you're going to win 88, 90 games. You just need that guy to, as you said, eat innings and just kind of fill that spot. And he's doing those things, and more power to him. And if he can, just show some of these younger guys how to go about their business and be successful, the A's have had terrible success with bringing in those veterans. They always bring these guys in who are 4 years past their sell-by date. And Savale still's got some juice left, still's got some miles per hour in that arm. So bring him in and see what he's got. And he's been good so far. So excited to kind of see what he does the rest of the way.
That's actually the White Sox way is to bring in people that should have hung up the cleats about 7 years ago. We like to bring those guys in. Or just guys that just graduated high school. There's really no in between
Tradition like no
for
other.
for what we are.
Yes.
But you will likely see Davis Martin, who just had an incredible game, went 7 innings. So proud of my guy. Like we have a Davis Martin hype train in our Slack for Southside Sox. Like we love Davis Martin. Myself and Malachi Hayes are his biggest supporters. And you'll see Eric Fetty, who is one of those guys who probably should retire, but he's in Chicago instead.
Yes.
So, the biggest threat to the White Sox, who on this A's team could really just put the nail in the coffin?
Well, I've done your podcast a few times, and I've gone the cheap way out with my answers on this question every time, and I see no reason to quit what's if it's working for me. Nick Kurtz was the rookie of the year last year, hit 36 home runs. He's got up to a bit of a slow start with the power. He hit his first home run of the season this past Sunday against the Mets. Beneath that, though, the on-base percentage is still 375. He's playing much improved defense at first base. Um, he'll get going, and I feel like the likelihood for him to really kind of get on a bit of a power run is coming up in these next few games as the A's settle back into West Sacramento. Um, Go off the board a little bit. One kid that I think you and your fans and White Sox fans should be looking out for is a kid named Carlos Cortez, former Met farmhand, former third round pick of the Mets, I think in 2018. And he kind of stalled out for the Mets in AAA. He's really only a left fielder, and the numbers just never really progressed past a couple of really good seasons in the lower minors. The A's picked him up, brought him in with Brent Rooker hurt. He's been able to play a little bit more. He's built like a little fire hydrant, and curiously enough, he's ambidextrous. He throws with both hands. He's a left-handed throwing outfielder, and he is a right-handed throwing infielder. He's mostly an emergency infielder, but the A's have used him there a couple of times. But he's really hits righties. He's got some pop. He's got a good eye at the plate. He's sitting towards the bottom of the order, but he's done very well. He's got kind of that professional hitter stink about him where he's just always has good at bats and is always putting the ball in play. So if you're looking for somebody aside from the tippy top guys that might be a threat to the White Sox, Cortez is one of those guys. He's a fourth outfielder to be sure, but he's on a bit of a heater right now. And you know how it is, Chrystal, with some of these guys. They'll have that just ridiculous Bolton hot first month and then kind of peter out a little bit. Well, he's kind of in the middle of that molten month so far. And if he continues this over the course of this next week, over the course of this weekend's games against the White Sox, he could be one of those little 5'5" guys you're just shaking your fist at because he's just such a thorn in your side.
I hope you guys do not your mean Mercedes him because that sounds So much like you're mean. R.I.P. He's not dead. He's just begging for a job on Instagram right now.
No.
I need to unfollow him because he very like I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, he was like still looking for an MLB team to pick me up. And I'm like, oh,
Uh,
baby, I'm sorry that Tony killed you. I'm
uh,
sorry. I wish I could help, but no team is going to pick you up. I'm just
uh,
need to be honest.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for these kids that they're well regarded somewhere, and through no fault of their own, it just doesn't work out in some place, and they get another chance someplace else. I mean, the A's famously let Ernie Clement go, and he's
Oh,
getting 300
yeah.
hits in the World Series last year. So what happens, and all you can do is just kind of root for these guys and tip your hat to the franchises that kind of unlock the secret that they couldn't find before. So yeah, Cortez. He's no one is saying he's the second coming of Babe Ruth or anything like that, but he's a fun kid to watch, and again, I think he's one of those guys that if he's in the lineup this weekend against the Sox, it could get that eighth inning two-run double that just breaks somebody's back. So
So with those two in mind, and then thinking bigger picture, what do the A's need to do to take this series?
well, I think first and foremost, the offense has to perform like everybody and their grandmothers predicted this offense would perform. There were talks about this being a top 10 offense, top eight, top six offense coming into the season, and they just haven't coalesced. Shea Langoliers has been the hottest guy offensively. He was leading the American League in home runs for a minute. They've had other guys kind of in fits and starts and spurts kind of produce. Max Muncy at third base for the A's is another kind of, um, I don't want to call him anonymous since there's another Max Muncy in the
Yeah.
league. But so obviously he's a known name, but this person is really hitting the ball well. But it's just been one of those seasons so far, the first couple of weeks of the season, Crystal, where they've had very few games where 1 through 9, everybody is kind of showing up. It's been timely hitting. It's been tremendously, shockingly, tremendously good pitching. But the offense needs to show up. And I know it's so boring, Crystal, to say we need to score more runs than the White Sox to win, but they need to break out the sledgehammers, and they need to have these games where they get more than just one or two guys stepping up because they just can't keep relying on these 1-0 games, which they've won two of in the last week or so. That ain't the formula for this team. They need Kurtz hitting. They need Langoliers, Lawrence Butler, especially guys like that. Um, Denzel Clark, God bless him, man. He's hitting ninth, and uh, I watch him like I used to watch like the worst hitter on our little league teams that I coached because anytime he gets a hit, I'm losing my mind because I'm so happy and so proud.
Buddy.
Yes, so proud of him because sometimes Crystal, he goes up there and I just swear he's just guessing.
Oh,
Like
I
I
know.
know guess hitting is a thing, but I just mean literally like the ball's going to be, here, and he'll swing and he's 6 feet from where the ball is, and so that's what it's going to take, I think. The pitching isn't as good as it is right now. So you expect some regression there. The offense has got to step up, especially with Brent Rooker out with the oblique injury for the next several weeks. They're going to need to score runs. I'm talking runs like in the 6, 7, 8 realm. They've not been doing that much this year. So if White Sox pitching can keep this offense in check, as the A's have been for most of the first 2 weeks, I think there's going to be some pretty competitive games and games that I think the White Sox very much can take.
Well, and again, I hate to just continuously go back to this Met series, but they had a very significant lead in what the second game of that series, and then
Yes.
almost gave that up entirely. And then it was a 1-0, win. And sorry, I saw a really funny Rasball tweet, Skeet, whatever they're called on Blue Sky, about what if the A's had an elite closer that walked out to blind by corn. And I thought of you.
If only.
I didn't tag you because I'm not a mean-spirited person, but
Well,
it's um, it's one of those
Kotsay,
where you just need those insurance runs
yeah,
to feel
Kotsay this
good.
year, they're doing the bullpen by committee again, which they did after Mason Miller was traded last year. And it worked for the most part
Mhm.
last year. This year, it's been a little tougher. I'm not an old man scold about these things. You can do closer by committee. You don't necessarily have to be beholden to tradition.
Mhm.
However, I'm a big believer in the bullpen that relievers need roles and they need to know what their roles are going to be. I just think that you get mentally prepared differently if you know you're pitching the sixth versus when you know you're pitching the eighth or the ninth. I got
Exactly.
no proof, I got no evidence that that's the case, but it just seems from a common sense standpoint that's how that works. So Kotsay, to his credit, has done an okay job of pushing buttons in the bullpen this year. When he doesn't do a good job, it is not pretty. And what the A's have basically been doing, the formula has been that first guy out of the pen is the whoever is rested and is the best guy. They bring him in, usually in a higher leverage situation because the starter's leaving and maybe it's 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. And so Kotsay kind of works backwards that way, which is fine, but I just don't know if that formula is going to work for 162 games because I just think it's sooner or later these guys are going to rise or sink to the levels of when and where they should be pitching. So I don't know. I'm not entirely trustful of Kotsay to handle this over the course of the next 5.5 months, but it can be a problem, Crystal. And if the A's have a lead and they're doing the mix and matching with the bullpen in, it's you're spinning the roulette wheel. Sometimes you're going to get 1988 Eckersley out of the pen, and sometimes you're going to get 2002 Billy Koch out of the pen, where it's just a roller coaster and you just cover your eyes the whole time.
Well, and you make a great point. There's a huge difference between somebody going in thinking, oh, I'm just setting up for the next few innings, or oh, I'm just going to eat 2 innings, or oh, this is a high leverage situation, or I need to hold this, or I need to save this game. There's a huge difference between that setup guy that comes in the sixth and the guy who comes in at a 1-0 game in the eighth. So not knowing, there's Flo. Just she has a lot of opinions too. Not knowing what you're going to do each day has got to be incredibly frustrating for a player, and then as a fan watching, of course.
Everybody's saying all the right things. I mean, that's, you watch the press conferences afterwards and, everybody's seemingly bought in, but man, I don't know. I just, ball players are creatures of habit
Mhm.
famously. And I feel like, even with a closer by committee, I feel like you can still kind of, you know, sh shake out a bullpen in such that you know who those guys, those bridge guys are to get you to uh, the back end innings, and then who are going to be the guys they're going to handle the majority of the save situations in the eighth and ninth. The A's have a guy, Crystal, I kid you not, he's 298 pounds. His name is Joel Kuhnel. They just brought him up, and he's hilarious out there because he is a literal buffalo on the mound. He closed out the series finale against the Mets. Um, if you see him, you need to hope that he has to field a ball in front of the mound. And we're not body shaming in the least. I know these are athletes who have skill sets that a fraction of a percentile of the human race could only wish to have. But it's the greatest thing ever because it's this giant man trying to pick up this little white ball while stumbling off this hill, and it's the greatest thing ever. And watch for it late. You'll see it. You'll love it. I promise you. Of
Like if you know ball at all, we all know Bartolo Colon.
course.
Again, we don't body shame. Bartolo Colon, 285 pounds, went by the his name, the big sexy.
Yes.
Even Bartolo can hit a home run.
Yes,
So you can
yes,
do
and I
anything you
there's
want
there's
to.
nothing. It's like those thick six interceptions you see in football, where like the giant 330 pound defensive end is hauling ass and running 40 yards to the end zone. This is one of the joys of baseball, and I want more of it. I want all of it.
Yeah. So what are you afraid of heading into this series? Is it the Pope? Because he's bad on crime.
I
He's
do not
very
want to
weak
run
on crime.
afoul. I do not want to run afoul of the pontiff. Um, I think the biggest concern for the A's has they've got a couple of guys that have been off to some slow starts, and again, you don't want to put too much stock into 2 weeks of numbers. But guys like Lawrence Butler, hovering around 200. We talked about Denzel Clark in the bat. They've got some guys who are off to just some really slow starts. Their bats haven't always been great, and you know, we're not in red flag territory yet, but those some of these guys need to kind of figure it out and turn it around like lickety split. And as far as the pitching side goes, it's just still a bit of Russian roulette with that bullpen. And Kotsay has these weird loyalties. Mark Leiter Jr. should not be pitching high leverage innings. And I did a quick little search on Baseball Reference. He's given up in his last 15 appearances. I don't mean to get on a soapbox here. He's given up 10 of his last 15 appearances, he's given up a hit. In five of those 10 appearances, he's given up multiple hits. And in none of those appearances has he gone more than an inning. So you don't bring him in a one-run game, as Kotsay did against the Yankees, and they blew the lead and lost. And it's just that type of um, unforced errors. That something that Kotze just does, whether it's intentionally walking the bases loaded or so obviously bringing in the wrong guy in a particular situation. Um, I know this is going to sound like sour grapes, Krista, but this A's team could be 10-5 right now. That's how good they've played and how many times they've shot themselves in the foot. So if they can get out of their own way, and if a couple of these guys can turn it around offensively, I think they'll be in good shape. What is the likelihood of that? Both of those things happening? You're gonna be scratching your head right along with me at some points during this game. Some of the managerial decisions that Kotsay makes, and that's my biggest fear. That old Mark, who's a bald and with his gray beard, you think he and I would be kindred spirits, would be brothers, part of the brotherhood. But man, alive, I'm ready to have him excommunicated from the bald brother community because man, my goodness, he can drive me crazy.
Our Pope could do that. He could help.
Yeah. You've got connections.
We
Yes.
do.
Yes.
We have a higher power involved
Yes, clearly.
with the White Sox. I think that's the only reason they swept the Blue Jays was because it was Easter weekend and the Pope was like, "No, we're not doing this." Um, we've been terrible since, so maybe that was their downfall. But hey, at least we get really cool. I'm not getting one. I can't go to the game, but at least we're getting really cool Pope hats this year.
I saw that and I love that. That should be awesome. There are some great giveaways across Major League Baseball
We
this
are.
year. Pope hats in Chicago, Tupac bobbleheads in Baltimore. It's the golden age of giveaways, man.
I coming up, I'm going to emo night because at the end of the day, I am just an elder emo millennial woman. That's a White Sox one. And they're also doing like a Hello Kitty Day and a Star Wars Day. And I was like, oh, so your audience is really just me. I
Yes.
am your audience for all of
Yes.
these. I don't know. Well, the weekend that you are going to be in Chicago, where we will get to hang out at a Sox game, I'm very sorry. They're doing the day before. I will be at the ballpark 2 days in a row because the day before they're doing an Edgar Quero, Kyle Teal bobblehead. And I was like, well, I love my two catchers. Have to be there for that.
It's
So
the two-person bobblehead.
yeah, two-person
Oh, those are
bobblehead.
always,
It
yes,
looks
those are always winners.
It looks neat. I'm excited. So I have to go get that. My poor, poor husband is going to sit through two games that weekend. And
Yeah.
then
He knows
we're
what he signed up
going,
for.
we're going to Philly, like a couple days later, where we will also see the White Sox. And I'm like, I am very sorry.
But are you though? Are you?
My bad, dude.
Yeah.
My bad. Um, I mean, that perfectly leads us into moving away from our teams. What are you hopeful for this season? What are your hot takes? Your ice cold takes? Any of that?
All right. You've brought it up a couple of times, Crystal, and I think we need to have a longer discussion, longer conversation about this. Um, you are not happy with Mason Miller's music choice. You're not really. No, you can't possibly be. Are you? There was a lot of when it was posted on Blue Sky a couple of weeks ago. There was a very polarizing. a lot of very strong opinions from either side of the aisle, but I do not remember seeing yours. Maybe I missed it, but where do you stand on this?
I
Because
I
you,
just it's so corny. It's so like
you know,
that's Mason, if you're listening, and I know you are, that is a guy named Kyle who drinks Monster Energy drinks to go to his construction job. That is music for them.
oh,
I have seen so many silly videos of people like pretending they're up at bat and it's like you just got called up into the majors and this is your first inning and you're coming in off the bench and then you just suddenly hear and they'll like start the music for that song Corn and I'm just like this is our life now. I love the alt representation
yes.
as an alt girl, but like you could have there are so many better songs that you could have picked for
I,
that.
I just look, I lived in San Diego for 30 years. I was here when Trevor Hoffman, for all intents and purposes, invented the grand, elaborate closer entrance with Hell's Bells, and
Yeah.
it was incredible. I mean, everything about the song and the beats of the reliever entering a game, it fit like a hand in a glove. It was perfect. And as the years have gone by, we've seen the evolution of that with live instrumentation and whether it's in Philadelphia and City Field, LA, we've seen all these closers do all these wonderful things with it. My biggest beef with this Mason Miller thing is that it's not San Diego-ish, and it's hard to put it into words. I've lived here since the mid '90s, but it feels so manufactured. It feels so derivative. Like everyone else is doing it, so we got to find something. And Miller's been. I've seen interviews. Miller's been very not coy, but he hasn't, I don't think, been completely honest about how this whole thing came about because I think it was just a bunch of dudes in some boardroom who were like, all right, we got 6 songs, pick one. And Miller was just like, I don't care, go with that one. It's just the light show, the pomp and circumstance, it looks great. The song just doesn't work. And it's just too with the light show and everything, it's just too I don't know, abrasive, aggressive. It's just, it doesn't, there's no build. It just jumps right into punching you in the face. And I don't know. People have asked me, well, what would you pick? What would you pick? And I can't think of a better one, but there's got to be one out there because this one's just driving me up the wall.
A few things. I would like to point out that he was -4 years old when that song came out. I looked it up. That song came out in 1994. Wolf, because I remember when that song came out. He was born August 24th of 1998.
Yes.
So yeah, negative 4. Um, and I mean, you alluded to Edwin Diaz. His time
Yes.
at Citi Field. A core memory is watching him come in to close at Citi Field with Mr. and Mrs. Met doing their like hold on, their fake
Yes.
trumpets. Right here, if you're
Yes.
watching on YouTube, I have the Edwin Diaz trumpet
She's got props, guys.
down the horns right here. Core memory is watching them like do their little pretend and then like when Tommy came out and like did the actual trumpets like for real the guy who does that
Yes.
song
Yes.
he came
Yes.
out for Edwin Diaz at like I think the All-Star game or it was something wild. And then like a more recent example too, Liam Hendricks does Thunderstruck, at least he did
Oh,
on the
yeah, that's
White
right.
Sox.
That's right.
A lot of fun because they did kind of a cool light thing.
Mhm.
And Thunderstruck is just that like that really hyped up song. You think of like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, they do Thunderstruck. You hear that and you're like, yes, let's go. I'm hyped. And Liam kind of fit that persona.
Mhm.
Liam Hendricks is very well known for, being mic'd up and swearing on live TV. Like he fits that persona.
Crystal, I think that might be right there what my biggest beef is. Mason Miller with this baby face, cherubic
Baby.
face of his. he tried in Oakland and then in Sacramento. He tried the stare, the glare.
Mm-mm.
Dude, you just wanted to give him a hug,
He's a
man. You want to kiss
cherub.
their cheeks, dude. And it's just like it just none of this fits, none of this works. And it worked with Hendricks, it worked with Hoffman, it works with Diaz, all because of just it all just kind of fits. Like you could see it in their DNA. It fits. And this just feels like, somebody just kind of, cranked this out and handed it to Miller and was like, this is your jam now, and we're gonna run with it. And man, I see. I'm glad we're kindred spirits in this regard because Padre fans
It's
who
corny.
I'm convinced are only saying this because they're Padre fans, and I'm just like, guys, it's okay to be wrong. It's you don't have to be loud and wrong on this because it's I haven't seen it live. Maybe it's a different vibe when you're there in the ballpark. So, um,
Doesn't look
um,
like it though.
well, my first time in at Petco this year is going to be when the A's are in town in May. So I hope I don't see it live.
Yeah.
But even if I do, I will still, I promise you, based on this discussion, I promise you, I will shit on it in person.
Thank you. Also, just record it just because I
Oh
never
yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, I'll need, photographic proof that it was crap, and I will absolutely do that.
I do appreciate, like, I love that he's like trying to grow this little like chin beard now and look tough. But like Liam Hendricks probably ate rattlesnakes for breakfast in Australia as a child. And like Mason's like, I've got some little peach fuzz here on my chin
Ah.
now.
Crystal, we could do another half an hour on the unfortunate facial hair of major leaguers. And I say that as somebody with unfortunate facial hair of my own, but I'm not on television for 6 months out of the year, with kids looking up to me because good grief. Mason Miller, I'm talking to you. Matt Chapman, I'm talking to you. It's like you guys knock it off.
Bryce
Just knock it
Harper.
off. If that thing doesn't connect, shave it off.
Bryce Harper, please. You
Oh,
look
oh,
unhoused
his
and
face is so
dirty.
weird and wrinkly. Oh,
Bad.
oh,
It's
all
bad for him.
craggy. Oh. That raw milk. Stop it, Bryce
Yeah.
Harper.
Though I respected only Bryce Harper after the World Baseball Classic because he actually did stay after he, first off, Mason, who took off his medal right away, mad at you. I could almost be your mother. So just
Ah,
take that as a disappointment. But Bryce actually stayed out and shook everybody's hands and congratulated them. The only non-butthurt Team USA player that actually did something right. And I was like, you know what? You were the last person I was expect. Well, no, Aaron Judge and PC are on that team, but like you were one of the last people I expected to actually do this. So I mad props to him
yes.
on that regard, at least. Thank you for not being a douche. But Mason that just ripped that medal right off.
Right after my son's heart, he would have my son Jalen would have done the exact same thing. So I couldn't be too mad at Mason, but yeah, no, Harper. I'm glad to see Harper. All kidding aside, I'm glad to see him, the evolution of him as a ball player when he first came in with the eye black, war paint on, and just the wildly unfair pushback he got from the baseball establishment.
Mhm.
Say what you want about his personal choices off the field, but he's been a hell of a player, future Hall of Famer. He's one of those dudes I absolutely am rooting for to get a ring at some point in his career because, I hate that he deserves it. This person deserves it, but it'd be a wonderful exclamation point on a wonderful career.
Do you think he's a first round Hall of Fame pick?
I do. I do. I think Harper checks all of the boxes. I think he's been he hoisted into superstardom as a teenager, and I
Mhm.
think he's worn it well. To the best of my knowledge, he's kept his nose clean. He's had no incidents off the field that could be problematic. Again, obviously he's got some questionable choices of associates and the like, but thankfully they're crackpots and kooks, not gamblers or lowlifes or anything else. So yeah, yeah, he's absolutely first ballot Hall of Famer, and I think for him and for Philadelphia, I got a lot of Philly fan friends. I'd love to see him get that ring and get that city a championship.
As a Mets fan, I begrudgingly agree with you. I don't want
I know
this.
this pains you. Yes.
It does hurt. I do own a Phillies Andrew McCutchen jersey though, but I'm a little scared to wear White Sox gear to that ballpark, by the way, when I'm there in June. A little terrified because like this team, Like they're fans. They booed Santa Claus.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been to Petco here with when a lot of the other National League teams come to town. Philly fans, they're very, very loud, but I've never found them to be particularly rough or mean-spirited. Not Dodgers fans, not Giants fans, not Cubs fans. Those are the ones that I would be a little leery of
Yeah,
being around. But Philly fans, our mutual friend Ruth, she did a
true.
Phillies City Field doubleheader, I think, one Sunday, and I'm reasonably sure she survived. So you might want to check in with her
Aaron, they
and
booed Santa.
yes, yes, but you know what? Maybe Santa had it coming. I don't know. I don't know. It's when he does not bring you that Cabbage Patch doll or that Atari 2600 back in the 80s. Dating myself wildly here,
I
but
had a Cabbage Patch doll. It's okay.
can be worth those boos.
I guess. Well, do you have any more fun takes before we?
No, I'm glad we got this Mason Miller one. That's the one because I knew we did this last year with takes outside of A's and White Sox, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah, we're gonna dissect this Mason Miller thing. But no, honestly, I'm gonna be in Chicago for the very first time later this spring. Really looking forward to that. Obviously one of the great American cities. Um, I've been to the great state of Illinois more than a dozen times by my connecting flights at the airport. People say it doesn't count. I say it does. I have bought drinks there. I've contributed to the local economy.
There you
It
go.
absolutely counts if you go to the airport. So maybe I haven't been to Chicago before, but I've been to Illinois
Well,
at least a dozen times. And I'm looking forward to actually stepping out of the airport
yeah.
in a few weeks. It should be a good time.
I'm excited to show you Rate Field. We can go to the Pope mural. You can see where he set during
Nice.
game one, which is
Nice.
fun. They've like put a little sign on his seat now, but it's an people give this ballpark a lot of flack and they say it's boring. It's a nice ballpark and we have the best food and it's
Nice.
not overpriced. Um,
No, I'm
so I'm
looking forward to
excited
it.
to show you
Yeah,
that
doing
park.
that, doing Wrigley, a little doubleheader over the course of like 4 or 5 days in Chicago. So hopefully that Chicago late May, early June weather cooperates. Hopefully humidity has not rolled in by that point because I really don't know what that is out here in San Diego, and I don't like it. So hopefully it stays away.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Wow, ringing endorsement. Okay, all right. I'll make sure
No,
to
no
make sure to
promises.
make sure I bring a little extra moisturizer for the scalp. Can't have the frizzies.
Yeah, trust me. Um, cool. So just as a reminder, where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm on all the social media platforms, Blue Sky predominantly. I'm also still over there on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find me at the handle that bootleg guy. I am always happy to talk any and all things athletics, baseball. I love talking old players from 35 years ago that nobody remembers.
Name that
But
guy. Yeah,
I can mix it up with the modern stuff too. So that's where you can find me. And like I said, I got this Fan Sister podcast coming later this April. You will hear your host here on Visiting Dugout, Miss Chrystal O'Keefe, popping up on that. We had a really, really fun discussion. I'm looking forward to sharing it with everybody.
we did. We talked about women in sports, which is fun because the White Sox are actually doing a it's like ladies game day or something that I got invited to be a
Nice.
VIP guest for. So like
Outstanding.
they're finally doing something for the gals.
Well, it's only taken over 100 years, but I'm glad that,
They
baseball at least is considering looking at their women fans as something they might want to market towards. That's
did you
awesome.
send them like an early screener of our conversation?
I kind of wish I had so I could take credit, but it is the conversation that you and I had. It's one of my favorite things that we've done so far in the handful of episodes that I've done. And you were such a wonderful and gracious and candid guest, and it's a very important lane that needs to be filled. And it's embarrassing that it's taken this long for Major League Baseball to take the first couple of steps, but so grateful, Crystal, that you've taken the initiative and you've built up what you have built up over there. And you and I have so many other mutual friends, women in baseball, women in ball, and it's support them, support what they do because they're all doing great work out there.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. Best of luck in the series. Excited to see you soon.
Sounds good.